Okay, Councillor Rittman, you may go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. And I'll call this Heritage Barrie Committee meeting to order. And thank you all for coming. And today we have some extra special guests with us. Rebecca James Reed, Sherry Harris, and Melanie Rumley. So, and that has to do with our very first agenda item. So I'm going to suggest that we get started on that. Just by way of a little bit of background, the Hawley Community Center is going to be renamed. And as part of that, Council passed a resolution that we do something to recognize the heritage of the Hawley name, the Hawley community. And it's pretty wide open. And Rebecca and her group are going to be sort of in charge of that. And that's why they're here to chat with us. I had also suggested that Mr. Lougheed, who is a long-term person in this area, also join us, but he's not available. But in spite of that, I thought, you know, let's have a chat about all of this, and that'll give Rebecca and her group some context in terms of what the committee might be feeling. And then they will reach out to Mr. Lougheed, and I'm sure there'll be some more discussions along the way. All right. So that's by way of background. Rebecca, do you have any thoughts at this point, or should we just throw it open to committee to
Thank you, Councillor Rima, and hello to everyone. We're really excited to be here today, and we're looking forward to this project. I think it could be really a really positive addition to our community that use the Hawley Rec Center. We know that over 1 million people use that facility a year, so it's a very popular facility, and it's going to be a great opportunity to educate residents and visitors to the history of the area. So what we were envisioning, or what council was envisioning, was sort of a memorial, or like a display, I guess is a better word, along the hallway in the Hawley Rec Center. And Sherry's been speaking to some of the staff in the recreation area, and they're going to be sending us some photos of options, but we want it to be very prominent. And so for those of you who've been in that facility, we're sort of thinking around the entrance to the 2 rinks. There's a wall that is empty there. And so we were thinking of a kind of a collage of photos and some copy that we're hoping that this committee can help us to generate, that could speak to the history and some of the importance of the photos, whichever photos we come with. And we're thinking that we would, once we get your consultation and we get some photos that you've selected and some verbiage, then we would mock it up and bring it back to this committee to look at. And then it would be in some sort of, depending on your feedback, either a glass display, or it would be something that would be very durable and laminated and contained within that space, because we know that a lot of people may bump into it with their hockey bag or their running shoes or what have you. So that was kind of the vision. Sherry, I'm not sure if you wanted to reach out. I know we did speak with Mr. Lougheed by email, and he did send us a link of photos. So we've had a chance to sort of start looking through that. And he's definitely interested in working closely with this group on that project, but he is away until February the 11th. So Sherry or Mel, if you have anything to add.
No, I think you've summarized it great. Thanks, Rebecca. I'm happy to share via Tammy to the rest of the committee the link that Mr. Lougheed shared with us. There is some really great photos that he's already sourced, and I call them like a cut line or a photo cut line that goes with it. So they're not massive copy that goes with some of the photos, but there's the context of what the photo is, whether it's a place marker or the people within the photo. So what we need from him then is, I guess, what would be nice is a timeline or a story of what that looks like, because we'd like to ensure that from the Indigenous community to, I believe there was, they spoke about the Little family and then the Holly community in itself. So it'd be great if we could get representation of all of that through our timeline and through our display. And I'd be happy to share that link, as I said, through Tammy to the rest of the committee, so you guys could have a look at some of those resources that we might already have at our disposal.
All right. Any comments or questions from committee members? Craig.
One of the projects that we were hoping to work on with the Heritage Committee was the idea of signs for different parts of areas that make up Barrie today. So we were considering a Holly sign, Painswick, Allendale, Barrie, you know, and this would be outside in those areas, so that people sort of understand that Barrie isn't just Barrie, that there were these little communities. And that's one thing we were considering working on, to sort of teach people that are new to Barrie that Barrie was all these little communities. Is that something maybe that you maybe consider? I know this is inside, but would you consider that as a real teaching tool for people? And you know, the idea that people can learn about all these different communities that actually made up Barrie. And if they did one, let's say for Holly, would they consider doing other ones in other parts of Barrie, and not just the waterfront? So this is sort of reaching out to other parts of Barrie.
That's a really, really neat idea, and certainly you've seen that in, you know, Toronto and some of the other cities that you know you've drive through. I think that's a really great, a great suggestion, and I think you could almost see, as you were speaking, I was almost thinking like whatever we end up landing on for the inside Holly, it'd be really neat to then actually have some place on our website for it as well, because then if people are driving and they're not visiting our rec center, but they see these signs, then they might, you know, visit our website to learn more and then really have that education piece as well. So I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's a little bit outside of the scope of this, but I think certainly council, and I don't want to speak for Council Riepma, but I think it's nicely aligned with the vision that council spoke to. And it's certainly something that Sherry's team could help with. I guess I should have said off the bat that Sherry, Mel, and I are all part of our communications and marketing team. So we have a team with our graphic designers and stuff in-house that can help with that work. Yeah,
and I might just add that that this little team has definitely got some real capability, that's for sure. And I think with respect to the sign and maybe the sign for Holly, I mean, if you look at, if you drive through Springwater Township, they have all these little, call them hick towns, and they all have a sign that says, you know, this is the sign, and this is the town of something or other. So yeah, it might be something to think about, is if we could do a sign like that. I saw Deb's hand and then Kathy.
Yeah, just a comment. I'm just so very happy that Doug is on board. There's nobody left that knows more about Holly than Doug Lahides. And I've actually worked with him on something else, a research project I'm doing for Holly. So very happy that this is resolved in a positive way. I know there was a lot of emotion around the whole initiative, but there's very little left of the actual Holly community in terms of, you know, heritage or historical buildings. So if you can honor that community within the community center, I think that'd be a great step. So good work, you guys.
Can I ask you, Deb, do you, through your resources, have pictures of that area as well?
I do, and I have connections to other people that do. And I was actually writing an article about Holly and have been corresponding with Doug before Christmas. So yes, within our historical communities, we have lots of resources. So you know, if Doug can't help you directly, we can get lots of images for you.
All right, so Sherry, meet Deb. Kathy.
I think at the meeting, there was also a comment made, while Craig mentioned the signage, there was also a comment, could we do something in the library, the new Holly Library as well, sort of historical about Holly itself. That would be really nice to put into that new location as well. So maybe, you know, people aren't going to the rec center, they're at the library. We're putting in a new library there. We could do something at the library at some point as well. And I also wanted to mention that I have a bunch of the historical review from the town of Innisfil booklets, Deb. I don't know if you have them, but it's all the history of the little communities, and it's got maps in it and photos as well. So if you need that, you're welcome to it.
That would be really helpful if we could get that to Tammy maybe.
Yeah.
And the library suggestion, I do recall that conversation. Do you envision sort of whatever we finalize and come up with for the community center, do you envision the same thing or something different for the library?
You know, it could be something different for the library. I mean, I don't think it has to be identical, but certainly a little bit of the history of Holly. And maybe something more creative. When we talked or briefly mentioned like Indigenous as well, something Indigenous related in the library. I don't know. We'd have to, you know, talk about that.
Okay, so then
as a group, we haven't really talked about it. This is our first as a group talking about it.
I would maybe just suggest, Councillor Rietma, that if it was something exactly the same and this committee approves it, we could just produce 2 of them and put them in the library. If you want something different, I think then you might need to engage with Lauren Jessup at the library, because I don't have ability to say this needs to go in the library. That's sort of a separate area.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that it might, sure, I can certainly connect with Lauren. I think that probably the difference might be the question of space, you know, the wall size and that kind of thing. I don't know what's available at the library. But I think, yeah, doing, you know, if you're doing 1, you could do 2 and maybe you do part of it or scale it up or scale it down or something. And we'll go from there. Craig and then Councillor Harris.
I was just going to say, I do know that just for pieces that there's quite a few veterans from World War I and II that came from Holly.
Yeah.
So, and I have researched all of them, and there's photographs. And I know the Bloxham brothers, I think 4 served, 2 were killed. So, and there's a couple other ones. So I do know what they are. So if you need that, I can help with that.
That would be wonderful.
Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Yeah, great to see this is happening. Thanks, Ms. James Reed. When I thought of the idea, it was like, yeah, it seemed to make sense. We could honor Holly in a better way than just naming a building Holly and no one has any reference of what it means. So it's actually an improvement, actually, than just putting a name on a building that's meaningless. But to that, this is my opinion, and I'll share it for what it's worth. But if you want to differentiate, I don't want to create work where you don't need to create work. Holly is Holly. So how different can the 2 installations be? Size being one factor. But one other factor that jumps to my mind is recreation and leisure and sport. So if there was any history of Holly as it relates to recreation, leisure, and sport, you could highlight that in the rec center and not necessarily highlight it in the library. So I offer that as maybe the obvious one that jumps out. You know, focus on the theme of the building that you're in, and obviously rec center being sports, leisure, hockey, whatever else. I would, if you could find that kind of stuff. I know Craig can, he's the heritage guy, and Deb, if it's there, they'll find it. So anyway, I'll stop talking because Craig's like waving at me. Are you waving at me, Craig, or do you want to talk?
I was just going to say, and maybe library would be community, churches, schools. Like I know there's a 1-room schoolhouse, the churches. So you can work on, the library can be more community pictures, and then, yeah, sport and leisure or transportation or whatever, you know, moving around. That'd be really great.
All right. Any more comments?
Can I just say, ask quickly,
Yeah.
and the learning, obviously we want to forget the mistake and remember the lesson. Moving forward, we're going to be naming other buildings and they may or may not have any historical or heritage kind of context. Is that going to be the model that we've maybe learned here? We're going to rename other buildings in the city. I know Allendale Rec Center is not on the list, so we can rest easy on that one, Kathy. I checked into that before Kathy's deputation. I know where she's going with this. But having learned that, I mean, so we probably won't, attach historical names to buildings, but we can still, through the building, provide historical context to them in a way that Heritage Barrie is offering to help with this building. Is that kind of resonated throughout the staff? That might be a way to go with other buildings in the future?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Harris. What we committed to doing is coming back to council, but probably won't be till the next council just because of the timing, with a recommendation of the future buildings that we're recommending naming. And then we're going to build into that a consultation period before we go out to get sponsors. So we would come to this committee, we'd go to the public, we'd get feedback, and then get the yay or nay to which buildings we're going to name. And then we'd go out and get a sponsor, so that we don't get in a situation where, in this case, back in 2015, 2017, there was no flag that we needed to be concerned about renaming the Holly Rec Center, but we didn't do a big public consultation. We went to public council meetings, but so that's how we were going to try to approach it, is to get ahead of that, come to the committee, do a decision at council, and get the consultation before we ask for sponsors, in an effort to hopefully make it a little smoother. And because we want to hear from the public, we want to hear from your committee, but we also don't want to turn off sponsors that say, I never want to touch anything at the city, because it gets, you get a bad name for putting forward your offer, which was not the intention.
No, yeah, it was kind of shameful the way Ms. Hill was spoken about. It's found money for I mean, I don't know how we can turn it down, but anyway, some felt that way. But thank you. Hopefully we can, manage some of the pratfalls that happened this time with good intentions. But I worry a little bit that we're going to ask people permission to name our buildings, and then set up, okay, everybody says no, I guess we shut down the naming rights. Anyway, I'll leave that for another discussion. But I mean, I think it's, what can we do to respect the area because we're going to name the building would be maybe the more honest approach. But anyway, I'll leave that at that. But thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. I think we definitely would have to come to council with what we want to ask the public and get your blessing on that. And then, then council can decide, yes, these buildings are not, it's going to be much easier, as we spoke about at council, to name like the new community centers when there hasn't been a name there before. That's less controversial. And it also is the type of naming that you get more money for, because they don't have a historic name associated with it that everyone's going to always call it the Rogers Center. So,
or the Sky Dome. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think, we have learned a few lessons, and we probably have a few more lessons to learn as well. But back onto the sort of the historic matter that we're dealing with. Are there any other comments that would be useful for the team to know at this point? All right. Hey, Ms. James Reed, any further questions for the committee?
I think we want to make this happen really quickly, because we are in a position to try to have the transfer of the name happen March 1st. So it'd be really wonderful if this spring we were able to have this happen, so that there's not a delay from the change of the name. So we do want to move quickly. And so anything that you have and that you could funnel through Tammy would be really wonderful. And then we will work with Mr. Loki and get some designs, and we'll come back to you to see what you think before we proceed to get them printed.
All right. I don't think that it's necessary actually that this installation be done and approved and installed, and that the change of name has to wait for that. It seems to me that as long as we're moving ahead with this, then go ahead with the name change and deposit the check. So, all right. Anything further on this item? If not, thank you very much, Rebecca, Sherry. Melanie, are you staying with us for the next little item?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
were all going to stay just to hear.
Oh, you're
the
all going to stay?
If that's
Well,
okay, just because it's a
you're-
communications matter.
Yes, you're very welcome to stay. I mean, in fact, you can stay for the whole meeting. All right. Let's then move up the communication strategy a minute. And we'll skip the Allendale GO Station matter so that we'll make good use of our staff's time. All right, the communication strategy, and Shelley, that is your initiative, and I'm assuming that Melanie has seen it by now. Or is that just an assumption that I shouldn't make?
That's an assumption that you shouldn't make.
Okay, all right.
Hi, and thanks. Nice to meet you, Melanie, Sherry, and Rebecca. Thanks for joining in. Thanks, Councillor Ripa. So yes, I have a marketing communications background. So I was asked on behalf of the committee to put together a communication strategy, but it's kind of more of a communication toolkit. Because we work in conjunction with and alongside the City of Barrie's communication department, but obviously are developing partners in crime, so to speak, of how to get the good word out there for various initiatives that we're doing. So with my experience or whatever, I put together this, but I also spoke to Kathy and Deb that also have experience in this area. So I put together a draft, which is quite detailed, but I didn't want to share it with the committee quite yet because I sent it off to Claire and Thomas and said, okay, I've thrown everything in the kitchen sink in here. But so I really wanted to get it down, but I had suggested to Thomas to have a quick look at it. He came back to me at, not a few minutes ago, but a short while ago with some comments. So we said that we would go over a few things that he had, and then we would pass it along to yourself, Melanie, and then we can see what is aligned with the city's communication department, and basically how we can help, and basically what the objective of what I've outlined is. And then I'm suggesting, I guess, that we would bring it back to the committee or send it to the committee and then get their input before, it's before we create any, FAQs or templates of press releases or anything like that would go out. So I think Kathy, Deb, Thomas, I think I've summarized where we are with that. But Thomas, please jump in if I've forgotten anything, or Deb, Kathy.
And Thomas, I think I saw your hand.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I am the proverbial stick in the mud or stick in the spokes type thing, slowing Shelley down here a little bit. But I did take a look at it this afternoon. I thought what Shelley put together is quite thorough. Obviously, with her experience, it shows. And I just, I put a bunch of comments in there, questions to think about, and these are just things that I actually learned from Mel, us working together on the official plan. These are questions that the communications department may ask us to clarify. So from my knowledge, I just thought, let's just get these clarifications in there. And then, like Shelley said, we'll get those sent over to Melanie for her thoughts. And hopefully by the next time we come to the committee, we can sort of finalize it. We can always discuss things electronically as well. So if we get the document further along, we can circulate it to the committee and garner feedback that way as well. So we don't need a motion or anything to accept it, I don't think. If it's something that the committee wants to act on, then we can just do it all electronically. So but if there is, we've had this before where I've circulated things electronically and it's generated a lot of discussion, and I said, okay, well, it's best to just pause the discussion electronically and actually meet and discuss it. So we can go both ways. But yeah, we should be able to probably move that along fairly quickly.
All right.
Thank you, Councillor.
So just to clarify, so I think the next steps, because I always like to, okay, what are we doing now? So Thomas and I just saw it today, tomorrow, early next week. And so Thomas and I will maybe set up a time to have a quick Zoom ourselves, or just to kind of go through the points, and then I can kind of finish it up. So I'm expecting that by middle to end of next week, we should have a draft that I'm going to send to you, Melanie. And then, then we would have a Zoom or just a phone call to say, okay, maybe explain it a little bit more if you have any questions. And then, Melanie, what do you do with it? Just so I know, while you're on the phone and I can see you, or while on the meeting.
Yeah, no problem. So I would work and obviously get Sherry and Rebecca's approval to make sure that everything is aligned with our department's initiatives. But yeah, that sounds like a great plan. Thank you.
Okay, so give it a week and then we'll have that, and then maybe we'll circulate it before the next the Heritage Barrie Committee meeting.
All right.
Sound like a plan?
That sounds like you've got everything in hand very nicely.
Thank you.
Any questions on that or any comments? Rebecca.
Thank you for that. I look forward to hearing about the plan. I just wanted to just mention that we do, if you weren't aware, we do have a lot of communications tools that we have in our kind of toolkit that we've pre-purchased. So we have like radio ads and our This Week in Barrie newspaper ads and stuff like that. And we're happy to support the good work that's coming out of this committee. So we'll be excited to see that comms plan. And our local media is also always eager and looking for stories. And so we could have this plan that we could then pitch when there's an opportunity. So I think it's a really great initiative.
Great. And that's also in conjunction with all the good work that Deb Exel's doing as far as getting, stories out as well. So that would have to be kind of timed in far as what she's doing in Barrie Today and other media as well. So yeah, it's great. Thank you.
All right. Yes, I think we're really moving the ball down the court here on this one for sure. All right. Any more discussion on the communications plan? All right. Well, thank you to our visitors, and like I said, you're most welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. But we're going to go on to the Allendale Go Station art project. Thomas, did you have something to share on that, or is that Councillor Harris? I think it's Councillor Harris.
I can let Thomas off the hook. It's not, because we have made many efforts to meet with both Miss Ryan and with Lisa McLean, who's the new contact for Metrolinx. And we get so close to a meeting and then we get canceled. So we haven't yet met. So Thomas and I agreed with him, because Miss Ryan would have come tonight, but we didn't have that meeting yet. So we didn't have anything to add. So we are, fingers crossed, scheduled to meet. I think it's the 23rd off the top of my head. We've got other meetings set, Thomas. So fingers crossed we actually meet this time. But we just, I don't know, it's something in the water, but we seem to get canceled at last minute every time, and I get people are busy and things come up, so that happens. So, but we're resolute in meeting, and we will have something hopefully before the March gathering of the group. That's all.
Right. That's great. No, I'm very pleased that you have Carol Ann involved, because she'll be of a great help to that. All right. The next item that we have on our list is walking tour guides. Thomas.
Thank you, Councillor. I just wanted to speak to the previous items very quickly. And that's Carolyn Ryan. She's been doing a bunch of research for us, basically looking at what has been done in other municipalities, how much these things cost, who the partnerships were, how they got artists, and all these other things. And through her research, she found that we may need to pivot in direction on what we discussed last time. Whether or not we're going to pivot sort of depends on that meeting with Metrolinx. So we are actually going to, Carolyn Ryan and I are going to meet with the subcommittee, being Councillor Harris and Craig, and we're going to have a chat about that, ask them to confirm if we should be pivoting direction or not, and then we would act on that. So it's a bit of, just stay tuned. But we are making progress in the background on things. Collecting information is important to get this project right. So that's where we're at now. And that's it. Thanks very much.
Oh, perfect. And that way, you do the background work, and then the next meeting or the meeting after, you can come to the committee and you'll have some kind of plan that's really going to work. So that's great. Yeah, appreciate that. All right. Any questions on the Allendale one? No? Okay. Moving on to the walking tour guides. And did I see somebody wanting to talk about that? Yes, Thomas.
Thank you, Councillor. So I just want to give the committee an update. We have been looking for the digital version of the new walking tour for a while. Mel, she's not here anymore, but she was able to find those for us, and we have them actually posted on our website. And the old walking tours are there. She is. The old walking tours have been taken down because we no longer have those booklets anymore. So now we have the consolidated booklet. So we don't have the individuals anymore. Now it's all sort of in one. So we have that. Deb, as you mentioned earlier today, you did send me an email, unfortunately, just dealing with planner of the day things, and I can't get to my inbox as quickly as I would like. So I did take a look at what Mel sent. Deb. Deb, I certainly think you can show that to, and do your presentation to the committee and share your ideas. I think you're on point with everything that you're saying. And I think Mel is here, she can get sort of the context for what we're looking to do. And we have the material. So it's just a matter of connecting your ideas and the committee's ideas with Melanie, and we can get a new product put together and likely be printed by our sign shop or our printing office. And we still have to get a cost or a quote for that. But that's probably a couple of steps away. First, we got to see how long these things are going to be. So without further ado, Deb, if you want to, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to share my screen? I can do whatever you like.
Doesn't matter. Either one of us can do that.
You're in the driver's seat then. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Somebody give me the controls then. Hang on.
I think at the bottom you should have a share screen option.
Yeah. Hang on. Yep. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, super. I'm gonna have to minimize you guys here. So I guess the timing's right to be reprinting our walking tour guide, and just kind of where we got here. In our last committee, well, first of all, we've had a lot of walking tour books over the years in many different formats. I think probably our original one was an actual map. It was a big fold out affair, and they were sketches. So we've had many iterations of the walking tour books. Some are almost 40 years old at this point. In the last committee, the comment came up, the books are great, but we've got to manage all this paper. So, can we look at consolidating it into one book, which we did. In order to do that, though, the images were made a little bit smaller. We had to shorten the descriptions a little bit in order to fit everything into the number of pages we were allocated. At the same time, we had Mayor Jeff write a message for inside the front cover. We redid the information about, the register and designated properties and the awards, and Access Barrie gave us a fresh new look. But essentially the content was mostly unchanged, a few little updates. There was still the Grand Homes walking tour, which isn't really a walking tour. It was kind of hanging out there only because all but maybe one or two of those particular homes didn't fit within the walking tours as they were defined at the time. So as we think about a new logo for Heritage Barrie and supplies of the guides are running low, it makes sense to, if we're going to introduce those kind of changes like a logo, what else can we do to enhance the current guide? So probably the biggest thing we can do that would create a lot of alignment and consistency is rename the tours according to their historic neighborhood. So it doesn't, it's not a big change. In many cases, the properties are just shuffled around a little bit. Many in downtown West are actually part of historic Queen's Park. What we used to call Rodney Blake Street, we've got a ton of content, but it's now really the East End. It was all just kind of stuck in downtown East, I think. Anyways, so we've got a lot of material. I think the content we have now in terms of images are from 2009. But it is a chance to update the content in the book. So I've thrown some mock-ups together here just to give you something to stare at. This is really the domain of Access Barrie to create the look and feel, the layout, the design. But essentially, these maps that we have today would look a little bit different because the boundaries would be the historic neighborhoods. Something else we can think about introducing, and I think, Thomas, this was your idea, was using some historical images. So I've just taken, some of my own images and images from the Barrie Archive to just show you what that could look like. And also introducing some new properties old properties that weren't included before, but they're still very worthy from an architectural or historical perspective. So downtown West could look like this, and there's a building that we had not considered before, the old Bell building. And downtown East, the Grove, a lot of the properties we might have had in downtown East are actually part of the Grove, and lots of grand homes as well, and properties that hadn't been inventoried. East End, which used to be called Blake Rodney, there's areas that we hadn't looked at before, like Kempenfelt Drive, and there's one of our Heritage winner properties there at 268 or 230 Kempenfelt Drive, and Earncliffe. There's another award winner here from Blake Street. So there's ways that we can update the content, bring in some more good properties as well. Something that's hanging out there, and next to East End, of course, is Kempenfelt Village. We have a few properties there as well. Something that's kind of hanging out there that we don't really have a historic neighborhood for is Sunnydale Road, which is actually the oldest street in Barrie. It was part of the 9-mile portage. So Sunnydale Road was the way into Barrie, Sunnydale Road to Ross Street. So we might consider creating a neighborhood guide that includes those properties. And there's at least 4 grand homes, 1 or 2 designated properties, and we may even want to think about including the cemeteries, which have tons of history as well. And we can't forget Allendale, and I just ran out of steam by the time I got to putting these mock-ups together. And we all know that Allendale is just loaded with great properties. So I guess in terms of next steps, before we go any further with the walking guides, introducing a new logo, reprinting copies, do we think we have agreement on reorganizing the tour areas according to historic neighborhoods? So I guess that's probably the big question. And if so, then we just would be shuffling the properties into their respective neighborhoods, introducing some exciting new content. Make sure that our images are up to date. I have lots of new ones for these properties. We might want to do an eyes in the field comparison. I think the latest images that are in the current glossy guidebook were taken in 2009, and some properties have changed dramatically since then. And of course, we need to tweak some of the content in the guide. For example, we talk about the awards being in December. Well, that's no longer the case. And at some point, do we want to also introduce guides for Brock Park and West Village? Again, we already have lots of content. We've just never included them in any guidebooks up until this point. And I did consult with my buddies, Kathy and Shelley, on these as well. And Shelley had suggested, right now we have text where it says, you know, this is a designated property. Maybe we use icons on the images as a reference to identify properties that are, you know, on the register, designated, etc. One of our constraints, obviously, which we found with the last guidebook, was size and printing and cost, and just the physical constraints of having everything in one booklet. So if we're forced to use kind of condensed content, do we also want to have an online version that's got expanded content, maybe more information about the neighborhoods, additional content, you know, kind of the sky's the limit. I'm going to stop talking at this point and ask everybody what they think or any questions.
Okay, so now it's everybody else's turn. Any questions or comments, thoughts on that? And you know what? Oh yeah, there, now I can see.
Sorry, that was a lot of blah, blah, blah.
Hey, that was very, very good blah, blah, blah. Any thoughts? Well, first of all, I think organizing it by way of the historic neighborhoods that we have, I think that's a really smart idea. It connects things up very nicely. And I was thinking too that if you didn't have enough material, you could always combine one or two of them, like the East End and Kempenville Village, for example. But I think that's a really good start. And then I saw Sarah's hand.
Hi there. Yeah, I was just remembering back to when we've done our community outreach ones. It seems like a lot of people are interested in having, they liked the big general one that had everything in it, but they also seem to like specific ones of like just the downtown or the waterfront. So is there a way that we could do this combined one, and then for maybe the more popular areas, do just that section again? And then that could be maybe where we add in some more information for those specific areas that might not fit into the larger one. So we could do something like that online as well. But it did seem like people were, you know, if you could offer them one of just the downtown, they were pretty excited about that. But
yeah, and good point. We do have two other books, like Discovering the Waterfront, I think it's called, and another one which may speak to your request here. And then there's another one about portage prosperity. It has a lot of Indigenous reference and content in it as well. So yeah, people do spend a lot of time in the waterfront. So is there a way to maybe enhance that waterfront book? Again, they would need to be rebranded, that whole same look and feel. Whatever we're going to introduce for the consolidated guide, we need to apply all the same branding. But I guess that's a question for the committee. What do you want to do with those two additional standalone books? They can certainly be repurposed.
All right, anybody else? Craig.
I was just going to say, I really like the old pictures in there too. I think that because people are really interested in that. You know, what did it look like before? And So I think that have modern pictures like the buildings interspaced with the buildings and the people. And I Councillor Harris always mentioned it's about people too, right? And so, if you can have that in there, I think that's really good. So I think it's great. I love it. So thank you.
Anybody else? Jim, and then Kaylee. You're on mute, Jim.
I might have saw Thomas's virtual hand up too in the one side, but yeah, I think it's wonderful work, Deb. It's incredible. My question was going to be what Sarah had mentioned, like what do we learn from the handing out of the pamphlets over the summer? So that's great feedback on which ones would be standalones and which ones would be in a full booklet. My question was more, maybe this might be somebody, Shelley, from her expertise in communications. You mentioned, Deb mentioned the online, or someone mentioned having online. Could we do individual online pamphlets? So if people did go online and they lived in the Grove area, they could download the pamphlet just for the Grove or just for Sunnydale, or like, does that make sense as having, not printing them, but I could print them as a resident from the web page just for that specific area? Is that something that could happen or maybe be considered?
I think they can. They are now. They were consolidated in print, but they were broken up into their individual guides online. So Melanie's the expert, but that's how they had it formatted before. So
do that again. Yeah,
she'll have to work her voodoo and.
Yeah, it's not my. And just quick question, Sunnydale, what a wonderful area. I know it's a park, but the park has a history too. And I don't know if the Janice Leakey or probably the Doreen Parker Center, I guess it used to be a clubhouse for Barrie Golf and Country Club. Would it have been? I mean.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was looking for one more thing to put in the Sunnydale Road area. And I thought, oh, what about the park? And it has a lot of history to it, actually. And we have some great old photos. So that might be just a great addition to filling out that whole Sunnydale Road neighborhood, if we can create a new neighborhood. You guys have the power, so.
Well, and I love Craig's idea of having these old pictures. I think it's really exciting to go, wow, Sunnydale Parks. Most people wouldn't know in today's Barrie that it was a golf course.
Yeah.
I mean, old people like me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And as part of the technology, I'm just wondering if we could use a QR code of some sort, and that would lead you wherever the technology leads you. So that might be something to think about. Kaylee and then Shelley. Somehow I'm not hearing you. And you do look like, oh.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. I start out with saying, Deb, that's real great work that there's a lot of work that you've done, and that's real good. I think you're right with combining stuff into the neighborhood, especially if we want to do signage and stuff. It's going to keep the content that we put out the same, so everybody gets the idea of the neighborhoods, as well as the historic photos, because everybody likes to see the historic photos of it. And I had mentioned before adding it to the registry. So if you had some of those that we aren't using in the book that we could put online in the registry would be good, or even on the digital sort of map of where all the properties are. It's not on the PDF registry, but the other thing, adding that as well as updating any information that you've gathered for all that as well would be great.
All right, Shelley.
Thanks. Just to answer Councillor Harris's question, and I think, obviously Melanie knows it too, it's just, we can design anything you want. But I think it's a matter, I think when Deb and I, when we talked about it, because I mean, me being a newbie and, I kind of been doing the open hair Dunlop, and I kind of grabbed all the brochures, and there's a lot of information, great information, although some of it could be old. in the brochures about the properties. And so to Deb's point, by condensing it, you lose some of that. So the idea was to, well, let's not lose the information. If people are really interested, you could say, well, here's like the combined, here's the walking tours, which also to a certain degree, even though they're downtown, and I take your point, Sarah, because working the open air Dunlop as we all have this summer, the people are downtown, they want to walk downtown, so they want to know what's down there. But if you give them a walking tour that explains a thing all about all the historic areas in Barrie, they may actually decide to go and see other areas that they didn't even know about because it's kind of all in one brochure. So point number one. Number two is going back to the online version. I don't want to lose the great information, because if you're really interested in a particular historic neighborhood, we can always say in the book, go online for more information, perhaps about properties or about the parks or cemeteries in that particular historic neighborhood. So circling back to putting more of it online, perfect. But let's say Melanie can help us design something in such a way that we can break it out, to Jim's point, that we can then have, if you want to print out just a particular neighborhood, it'll have a plethora of photos and information that you can take away, which wouldn't be in the general guidebook. So that's how I think we envisioned trying to do a lot, but with one book and more online.
Makes me think of, wouldn't it be cool if you could do this on your phone? Because most people are walking around with their phone, and if you had a phone and it says, like the GPS tells you where you are, and then all of a sudden, the historic information pops out at you.
Melanie knows how to do that. Her team knows.
And now I'm way beyond where I should be. But anyway, I think that would be kind of cool. All right. Any comments on any of that, Melanie?
Yeah, it all sounds great. And like Shelley mentioned, anything is really possible. Like once we have the content kind of figured out, we can take it from there with our graphic designers and have one large book, individual books. We can have a QR code that drives to those, to that information online. We can make sure our GIS team updates the online GIS walking tour. So yeah, the possibilities are endless.
Sounds to me like we're well beyond booklets. All right, Deb.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, sometimes, we focus on a particular building, but as we're building out these tours in a neighborhood, maybe there's a way to incorporate, when you're walking down Dunlop East, like this is the McCarthy block, this is the Bothwell block, we have the Sanders block, there's the Boys block. It's like a whole street full of good stuff, and other neighborhoods as well, where, we call out one or two houses, but really maybe there's another way to also tell people, this whole stretch of Mary Street between, Dunlop and Ross is all, original homes except for one. So I think there's ways that we can really enhance the experience for people that are, looking at the guides on and offline. So.
Great. All right. Anything else?
Thomas had his hand up.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see that. Sorry, Thomas.
Thanks, Kathy, and thank you, Councillor. I just wanted to add to that we are going to have two new historic neighborhoods coming online very shortly, being Kempenfelt Village and the East End, with hopefully the adoption of the official plan happening shortly. So we'd have to add that to the work list or to the work plan for the heritage booklets. It's just, I see like this could get quite big quite quickly, and considering that this committee is here until November of 2022, there will be of course another committee, but if we want to have this done, we need to pick what we are looking to achieve, and I think there's definitely things we can do to achieve sort of the scaling aspect of what the committee's talking about, being having a simpler booklet that covers lots of areas. And there could be a little call out or bubble or something in there that somebody could scan with their phone, or it would say, want to find more information about this neighborhood or this building, scan this, and it would take you to a digital version. Because we already have something called Discover Barrie. All of our tours are posted on Discover Barrie, and that can host an infinite amount of content. So we'd have to figure out what content we want to have in these booklets that we are going to print, and what content we're going to drive people towards Discover Barrie or the main page on the heritage page. So I just want to make sure we have that manageable, just because it would be a lot of work. Updating the content is one thing, rejigging the content as well. And then we have to work with our online team and our GIS team to make sure that we reorganize this tour. So it just could take a little time, and I want to make sure that we have a manageable amount of work. Thank you.
And Thomas, if I could just reassure you a little bit, what we call Rodney Blake Tour now is now East End. And so I think it'll just be a fairly easy transition. It's just a renaming, I think, at that point. But Kempenfelt Village would be an add-on for sure. So good point.
If I could, Councillor, I have one more thing just to circle back. The two other tours, the From Portage to Prosperity booklet and the Discovering the Waterfront, we could keep those online exclusively. We don't have any more of the actual paper copies. We're all out. There's probably some of the Rodney and the Blake Street and maybe some of the downtown east and west left over from the older booklets, but that's all we've got in terms of paper. So I don't know what the committee wants to do. Do we want to print 3 booklets, or do we want to just have 1 booklet and then drive more people online? So it's just something we have to decide on.
Okay, any thoughts, Kaylee?
One thing that we might want to do is look into the cost, because that might sort of steer us in how many booklets we want to do and how many we can get printed, because they do go fast. So if we're printing 3 different ones, we don't have sort of as many to necessarily go out if we have a certain budget that we have to stay in. So that might be something to consider before we decide how many booklets we want to make up.
Yeah, good point. Money seems to be important. Kathy?
I just had a question. The waterfront walking booklet, can that be, there's been so much new information put out by the Heritage Walking Trail. Is it called the Heritage Walking Trail? That group. Is there a way, like, why aren't we sort of having all of that put into one booklet? And maybe that's not us that does that portion of it. Like the Waterfront Trail booklet goes to the Heritage Trail Committee, whoever put that booklet together. Is that, because I think the history part of the waterfront is the history part of it doesn't change. The historical part of it, it's the history. It's not going to change, but we've added all kinds of storyboards from the end of the North Trail all the way across to all of the Allendale storyboards, and whoever was responsible for doing all of that also there. And then that runs into, we've got the not the booklet, but the plaques and markers document that sort of runs into that as well. That needs to be updated.
Yep, that's a really good point. And it may well be that we'll be able to just marry those two up or borrow the trail information. I don't know where does that reside? Who owns that? Do we know, Thomas? Or Deb?
Councillor, I think so. I found the digital, or like the storyboards, what we call storyboards. It's basically an online map that you can click on each storyboard as you're walking down the waterfront. And I think there is also a PDF version of that floating around, but it's not hosted on the heritage page. It's probably hosted on the trails page. Deb, I think you might know a little bit more than that.
I don't know about that, but
Okay.
the person I dealt with to provide images for those markers was Wendy Lowe.
Mark?
Yes, Wendy. If you need
Yeah.
a name.
Yeah, Walter Fisher in those days too.
So it looks like it's actually under our parks page. So if you go under parks, trails, waterfront, and then trails, it's its own page about the heritage, waterfront heritage trail. There's other trails in there like the North Shore, 9 Mile Portage, Ardagh Bluffs. So all the trails we have, they're all under the trails page.
All right, so it may be that we'd be able to incorporate that or tie them together in some fashion. Craig.
I was just going to say that if you were a visitor to Barrie or even a Barrie citizen and you were on the waterfront, you've got all those markers there. And if you're really interested, and if we put them in the booklet, it seems redundant to me because I mean, I think those markers are great and they're going to be there for a long time. So working, downtown, handing out booklets, people are more interested in sort of definitely the downtown, where they can walk. So if you wanted something for visitors and people sort of downtown and you're handing out booklets, the waterfront part, and you can just say the markers are there and then concentrate more on sort of, the downtown and sort of the different buildings there that people can actually walk to. I think that if we're gonna have limited funds, then that's probably something we should concentrate on because that's gonna be the biggest bang for a buck, especially with like the market going in. I mean, there's gonna be lots of people and they're gonna want to go from the market and see these buildings, but I don't think we have to have the South Shore Center on it necessarily because the markers already explain all that. That's my 2 cents anyways.
All right. I get the sense that there is a consensus that we should do the overall booklet and that we should seriously think about at least the downtown one. And that may be enough of a bite out of our budget for now. Is that reasonable? Do I capture things? Yeah, okay. Deb, sorry, Kathy, you go ahead.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. The old hand sketched blue and white booklets, could we just reprint? Like not update because there's really nothing to update. That's just such a beautiful book. Could we just have that reprinted if we don't have any extra copies of it? I don't know, 100 copies or something like that. Is that something that's doable budget-wise? I guess it would be budget.
Well, it depends how much money we want to spend on it, but I'm assuming that it is possible. Any thoughts on that, Thomas or Deb?
Sure, Councillor. Those walking tours, it would be sort of doing what Craig said. Like we have those tours in that one booklet. So we'd be printing a booklet for one specific area and we'd be making it in a different style. So I don't know, I mean, if it's going to accomplish much for the committee, like the tour is already in there. But if the committee wants to do that, that is the committee's prerogative to print those as well.
Any other, Deb, did you, Sarah, and then Shelley.
I have a couple things. One, if we did end up doing just a pamphlet for just the downtown, maybe we could contact the BIA and ask them if they would be willing to partner with us on it. We could put their logo on it or, somehow make it enticing for them to maybe give us some funds to do it. But since it is a downtown thing and they are all about the downtown, perhaps that's a partnership. That's one thing. The second thing was, do we have a tracker for how many people actually visit our digital tours webpage? My only concern is that we're talking a lot about digital things and go and look online and be online and all that sort of stuff. But my wonder is how many people actually do that. And sometimes when you get a booklet that's got, 2 lines of information and then has, oh, check us out online, you go, well, that, I'll get to that when I get home or something. And then it gets chucked in a purse and nobody looks. So I was just maybe gonna say the digital lookup after is great, but maybe we need to balance between giving good information in the booklet while also providing additional information. So it's not just, like a line and then, hey, look online, and then nobody ever does it. It's kind of a waste in a sense.
Yeah, good point. Is there an answer to that? Like, can we track how many people actually go online?
Melanie has her hand up.
Melanie does. All right. Hello, Melanie. Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. We can track, I believe, page views, but I don't know that we can track like PDF downloads. I'll have to check with our digital team to see, but we can definitely track page views. So we would know how many people went to barrie.ca/heritage, but I'll have to check on the PDF piece if we can see those. I'll check for you.
Okay. It seems to me that we should really be thinking about having these capable of being downloaded onto your phone or somehow working on your phone, because that seems to me that if people are out there, they certainly would have their phone with them. But anyway, Thomas.
Thank you, Councillor. So there are a couple of things. I'm going to try to circle back on all of them. Starting with what you just said, Councillor. So there's 2 ways you can access the tours online already. So there's the digital PDF you can download, and then there is the Discover Barrie Walking Tour Guide. So it's a live map, and as you're walking, you would click on the next component or next part of the map, and an image slides up on your screen and gives you a description of what you're looking at. So we already have that on there. The online tour, the new consolidated booklet has Downtown West, Downtown East, Rodney and Blake, Allendale, and H Block and Courthouse. So if we want to do a downtown specific one, all we would need to do is print the section from the existing walking tour that is just for the downtown. But it's already in that main tour. What is not in that main tour is the Portage Portage to Prosperity and the waterfront one. So if we were going to make individual ones, we could build off of those. And again, we would make them available in PDF, and then we can make them available digitally, through a map. But if there is cost issues, perhaps we would focus on making more of the central booklet that has all of the tours consolidated, and then we can drive people to a digital version, and then perhaps next year we would print the other booklets. So it wouldn't be forever. It's just, let's get it. This one, like the walking tour guide, like the one that's on the fancy shiny paper, it is like gold. Like you give those out to people and people love those. So I support what Sarah's saying, is that people do like to have something tangible. And you get to see the pictures are better. It's high quality print and whatnot. So it's just, this way is a strategy to get us to having an updated document out there now, and then we can work on getting, those individual ones separately later in print, but digitally we can get it done right away too.
All right. That strikes me as being an eminently sensible approach. And is that something you can work with Deb on?
I think so. I think Deb has taken leadership on this, so I definitely think Deb is the point on this for sure.
All right. And I suppose one of the next things that we're going to ask is, how much is it going to cost to reprint whatever you end up coming up with? So maybe that's a topic for next time. If you can advance where we are, and then get us a price in terms of printing, then we'll be able to take the next step. Shelley.
I was just going to mention that with regards to that, going back to the sponsorship that I think it was Sarah had for like the BIA. there was also, member BDAR are, because they're the Barrie District Real Estate Associations. I mean, they are going to be in all of the historic neighborhoods. So maybe we could put their logo on the back, proudly printed, on behalf of the, Real Estate Association of Barrie, whatever. So we could maybe go to them for some money once we get the printing costs, and ask them if they would like to be involved in this. Is that something that we can ask, or does the city just go, no, you can't do that? I don't know.
Actually, on Monday night at City Building, we did in fact approve our motion that we passed a month or two ago to enter into discussions with BDAR. So that's going to be approved by council next week. And then I think the coast is clear for us to have that discussion with BDAR.
Yeah, that may solve a few things. So
yeah.
Anyway, a suggestion, just because they're representative in all of the historic neighborhoods.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Craig.
I was just gonna say, and what about tourism, Barrie? Obviously, I don't know if they'd be interested in this. This is what this is all about, is tourism, right? So.
Yeah, so we got tourism, we got BIA, and we have BDAR. So once we figure out where the price is, then maybe we can approach all three of them and see whether they've got a check. All right, do we need to have more discussion on this one? All right, Deb and Thomas, you've sort of got your information that you need. Perfect. All right, let's move on then to the Heritage Awards. Thomas.
That's me, Councillor. Thank you. So I guess it's just a general update for the committee as to where we are. So I spoke with all of the recipients except Queen's Hotel until just this afternoon. And they are aware of their getting their award. They're happy to accept. So somebody from Queen's Hotel will come and accept that award on Monday night. Everybody's been invited to the awards as well. So again, we are doing it digitally. It's going to happen on February 14th at 7 p.m. I suspect we are going to be at the very top of the council agenda. So anybody watching, stay tuned. You can watch that on YouTube as well at the city's YouTube channel. The photographer has been contacted. He's going to be taking pictures of the three buildings and of the Grace & Co. Foresters Regimental Museum. The guys are actually getting together in historic uniform, and they're gonna have a picture in front of the building. So it's gonna be great. I know that's gonna be a great picture. Two groups are actually gonna get certificates this year instead of photographs, just partly because it was difficult to get everybody in a room. And one group actually requested that they get certificates. So we are working with the mayor's office to get certificates basically printed for these two groups. There's going to be a presentation put together by myself and Councillor Ripa. I have some photographs of 178 Bayfield Street as well as 47 Rodney to show, because both property owners are looking to showcase their properties. The awards, I suspect we're trying to get them done like last year, where the ward councillors are going to be issuing those awards. And the two groups that are not award specific, I think that will be Councillor Jim Harris will be giving that award out as well, or those two awards. And then we have also done some communications work to help promote the event. So Mel, if you want to let us know what have we done so far? Because I know we've done a bunch of stuff and we're going to do more.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. We have a media release drafted. So that release has information about the awards. It has information about Heritage Week, more the provincial focus, because I know we're not able to do much locally with COVID. And then there's also a piece in the release about how homeowners can apply to have their heritage properties registered. So that's in there as well. So that will be shared. That was Kathy's request. Yeah. That will also be shared on our social media channels, our website. We'll put a homepage banner up there, and it will be in This Week in Barrie next week.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So Jim, you're okay to hand out those 2 awards to the groups?
Yeah, I know you sent me an email and I hadn't responded, so I apologize, Mr. Chair. I think so. I'm going to be away, so I'm a bit, to be honest, I'm a bit worried about my connectivity. That's my only challenge, to be honest. So I can't test it until I'm there. So, you know, I mean, full disclosure.
You're in the Bahamas, are you?
I wish.
And now, Thomas, today we had a discussion about the format, and we were talking about doing a PowerPoint presentation. Is that something that works? Because we didn't do that last year, but I think it's probably a good way to go, actually.
Yeah, so last year we didn't do a PowerPoint, and it almost flowed better, but because we have more pictures to show, that's really the purpose of the PowerPoint is for you to be able to do, you know, sort of do your spiel and introduce the award recipients, and I'll give you a write-up for those as well. And I don't know how who's gonna drive the bus during the presentation, but maybe as you're talking, I can flip through the pictures, or Tammy would do that. I'm not sure if Tammy, you're on that night, or somebody else from Clerks, but we would have somebody showcasing those images. I should also have the images from the photographer that on Sunday night, so I'll get them uploaded into that presentation. So there will be the recipient, for example, Peter from the Regimental Museum will be accepting an award, so he'll be there likely saying his thanks, but we'll be at least able to show their picture on the screen, so you know the public watching is able to see who these folks are. And we'll do the same thing for the Sir Robert Barrie Project Committee. So I think that's sort of the purpose, is just to give people watching just a bit of a visual of who these folks are, what the buildings are, and yeah, that would be the point of that. And I think last year we may have done the same thing, but we just didn't have a PowerPoint. But last year we only had 3 awards, and they were just buildings, so yeah. It was a little different. But now I've got more. I have the actual awards from the photographer, or pictures from the photographer, and then I have additional ones to show from the property owners. So it's easier for me to logistically to stick them all together.
Yeah, that makes and that may make for a really good presentation, actually. Let's see how it goes. I mean, let's hope next year we can do it in person, but we'll make the best of it. And if you can, also, I think the question will be in what order are we doing them? So we'll have to sort that out a bit. That way, you know, the counselors that are doing the awards will know what to do and when to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. So when I have the presentation finalized, of course, I'll send it to you, and then I'll just itemize it in the email how I've organized it, so we know who the recipients are. So usually we do residential, then we do commercial, institutional, and then we do group. So I'll keep that order. We don't have institutional award this year. We have 3 commercial and 3 residential. So sorry, I think I'm mixing that up. I think, anyways, we have 1 group, so I'll itemize it in the email.
Yeah, no, that's fine. As long as the presenters know what the order is and what they're doing. Yeah. Okay, Kathy.
Thomas, I don't know if this is something that you can add in, but or maybe you were already going to talk to this, that the Queen's Hotel is doing a restoration. So that sort of also connects to, I mean, yes, they're winning an award. It's a beautiful building. It's got some history, but also a mention that they're undergoing restoration work currently. And then also, I saw fantastic photos that I think I saw through an article Deb did for 87 Owen Street, which had a really bad fire years ago. And the pictures are fantastic. They show what the building looked like and then what it looks like today. Does it still have the scaffolding on the front of it, Deb? Yeah.
So what did you want to do with 87 Owen?
Just so is like, these are awards, but also that we could sort of say that we have 2 properties currently also in Ward 2, because they're in Ward 2, that are also doing restoration work on the buildings. One because of a fire, and the other one is the Queens, because they're just updating the building. They're restoring the building, and just a brief mention of it.
I defer to the chair on that.
Yeah, I think, we don't want to go stray too far, because I think we really want to focus on the awards and the recipients, and do a little bit of PR on, you should get your place listed. And certainly the Queens should be told that if they're going to do some renovations, that perhaps they might be eligible if their property was designated. They might just get some money. Anyway, let's carry on with that as we're going ahead. Kaylee.
Claire won't pick up my phone call. I don't know, Claire.
I'm sorry?
You won't pick up my phone call.
You could hear that. I know. It was my daughter, and I'll call her back. Kaylee.
Yeah, when I was working on the coloring educational stuff, I didn't like how it was going, so I've started to redo it. So I don't have it quite ready, but I'll have it for before next meeting and send it all out to everybody.
Oh, sure. Okay. No problem there. All right. Anything further on the Heritage Awards? Kaylee.
One thing I was wondering is for the Heritage Awards, if we're trying to get more knowledge out there for people to nominate, if we open up the nominations earlier. So when we are meeting people in the summer and like earlier in the year and talking about it, then they don't forget about it. They can either go and nominate then. So the nominations are open longer throughout the year. And if we're including it like in the walking tour booklets, that might be something to decide on before those get printed.
All right, that's a really good point. And let's keep that in mind for the summer for sure. All right, the next item on our agenda is Heritage Week.
Sarah had a point.
Sarah, I see you, Sarah.
I was just going to build on that. If that's something that
Sure.
we want to do, perhaps we say, we use these awards as our opening for next year awards. And you say, at the meeting, go, okay, we're going to accept nominations for next year starting now, start thinking about it. And then we can build on basically everything we do in the year can be reminding people to nominate. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think I'm going to hire you as my speechwriter. All right. Anything else on the awards? Kathy.
Not sure if it's awards, but do we have to request a proclamation for Heritage Week, or is that already happening?
Good question.
I think we've had to request it before.
All right. Is it me that sends a email to Jeff?
Tammy, would you know the procedure for that?
I thought it was already done.
I think we need to put a request into the mayor's office for the proclamation, and you need to provide the wording. You'll need the wording for the proclamation.
Okay.
An idea, the wording. So that would be like Lauren or Lauren Wild in the mayor's office.
And they wouldn't they probably already have, like, because we've had previous years,
Yeah.
they should already have the wording. They should have a copy of what last year's was.
Yeah, and they just need the up-to-date dates.
The week, yeah, like what
Yeah,
the date was.
what the appropriate date is.
Okay.
So the sooner the better.
My job for tomorrow. Okay, Craig.
Yeah, we sent in like last year and the year before, so they should have a copy, and then you can just change the dates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just update the wording.
Somewhere there, yeah.
Right. Does somebody have the date just off the top? That way I can tell Lauren.
The 21st to the 27th,
21st to 27th? Okay.
is that right? Thomas was shaking his head, I think.
Melanie was nodding and she
Okay,
got it.
good.
So we're
Okay,
good.
good.
All right. Then I will email Lauren tonight. All right.
Good catch, Kathy.
That's great. All right. Heritage Week. Anything more we need to talk about Heritage Week? It's going to be low key this year is the answer. All right. The educational material, Kaylee's updated us on that. The 2022 work plan. It was sent out to you, and any comments? This is unusual to have silence.
I'll start. I mean,
Shelley, yeah.
I'll just be honest to say, first of all, thank you, Thomas, for sending it out. And I will be honest that I haven't had a chance to look at it. The only, thing that we probably need to do is, I think, better put in team leads, or because sometimes it just says staff. And so I think we need to fill in the blanks for the lead and team. And I know Thomas and I, under the plaque program, we can add in like the plaque guideline, which is, really a signage guideline that we're working on, just so that the next committee members understand that that there is a guideline for listed and designated plaques and what they look like, and, yada, yada. So I'm going to say that I haven't had a chance to really give it a thorough read. So my bad, or I'm bad, or whatever they say.
Okay, no problem. I'm sure that you're speaking for a number of people. Thomas.
Thank you, Councillor. Shelley, I will add that to a work plan. I'll add it as a deliverable of the plaque program. I won't create a new line for it because we already have that in there. But thank you for reminding me of that.
All right, Craig.
The only question I have is, and I don't know if it's on this, but the street signs that were done. And I mean, I love that you sent out the pictures of the plaques for the home. So that looks like it's going. And I just wondered kind of where, with the work plan, where are we with those street signs? Because David and I kind of put them out there. And I know we had the money from last year and we put in whatever money this year. So there's the money. And I just wondered kind of when perhaps those would be put up.
David.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I reached out to Thomas just in the past, since our last meeting, and he has forwarded to me a list of signs, I believe, to be completed this year. Although and so I'm going to go back and reference some of our other lists that we put together and just see where that's at this time. And we'll try and narrow that down soon about how many will be needed additionally for this year. I can see one of those signs on the list that Thomas has sent is done. So I'm not certain that all of them, if some of those perhaps may have been completed already as well. However, so that's coming up, and I'm going to work. I can report on that further, hopefully soon, even if there's a bit of street work to do. But certainly when the weather gets better, I can get back out and double check some of these and give a little better idea of how many new ones are still to be completed in 2022.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, David. The background on that is that last year, at the end of the year, we spent, I think it was $6,600 to do more street signs. And I suspect that's that list you're talking about. They may not be up yet. So I guess, David, it's good that you would then take a good look and see what else is missing so that we have a list for this year. And then we can decide to budget for that if we have any money. Kathy.
Just a quick question. Whoever does the printing of the street signs, or is that where we're getting the list from? Like who's done the printing so that we know what street signs have been printed, even though, is that what you have, David? Like, and then who actually puts them up? Like which department puts them up? And do they not have a list of what's been put up and what still needs to be put up that we can use that would help, David?
Yes, that was sort of what I was after. And I think Thomas has provided that, although I'm not certain it's actually from the shop or the city. That's why I'm not sure exactly what it represents, completed and or still to be done.
Okay, well, David, maybe we can assign that to you as homework for the next meeting.
Thomas has his hands up.
I'll cross-reference some of our lists a little bit better. But
yes.
I have to look at the list more accurately that Thomas has provided, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thomas.
Thank you, Councillor. The list that Craig and David provided to me was given to that shop. The shop gave us a quote for getting all those intersections done. That was that $6,600 we paid for. They haven't all been printed, then they haven't all been installed, but they will be over the course of 2022. So I suggest that the committee consider that list to be done. Like we don't need to worry about those intersections. We now need a new list for 2021 so we can pay for it in 2021 so they can be installed over 2023. Now it is the operations and traffic department that's going to be installing these signs, and I don't know if it's students or whatnot, but there is or who's doing it, but I know they have it on a work plan, so they will be delivered, and when they're delivered they will be assigned to staff to install. So it will likely be happening over the next few months. Like Tom from the sign shop, he told me that, you know, production of the signs is going to start very soon, and they're actually waiting for product to be shipped in. So just like with COVID, everything else, chain supply issues, and now the protests happening. Yeah, I don't know if things are going to be a little delayed, but yeah, it's that list is, you know, in my eyes, it's complete, and it's just a matter of the sign shop getting those dropped off to operations and then they installing it. So we can comfortably work on a new list.
All right, David.
So then what you mean is if we want to go out and look for more intersections that we never identified.
That's correct. Yeah. So if
go
and find new intersections within our historic neighborhoods that are not on that list that you provided me, and we can do those this year.
See, very good.
All right. Good. All right. Back to the work plan. Any other comments on it? There are a number of things in the in sort of the orange that were for discussion, and number 8 is open air Dunlop. It was a big success last year. Are we back in on that one this year? Kaylee. Greg is thumbs up.
I'm not sure that I would consider it a big success. At least when Sarah and I were there, we didn't get very many people, and we found that we've gotten more people at the farmers market than at open air Dunlop. So if we're going to do stuff like that, you could still do open air Dunlop, but I might say do the farmers market as well, just because we got a lot more foot traffic than at least when Sarah and I were at the open air Dunlop.
Okay. Any other comments?
No, I think. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
I certainly would do open air Dunlop again. You know, we did have, I think there was maybe one day we had a bit of rainy weather and it wasn't so busy. And then I think we just left a little bit earlier than what we said we were going to do so that we weren't wasting our time. But I certainly, think that it's something that we should consider, and whoever wants to volunteer can volunteer. And the same, Barrie Farmers Market's terrific. And hopefully maybe we'll get to do Celebrate Barrie this year. So, and I don't know if Kempenfest is on, but maybe we'll be able to do that as well.
All right, Craig.
I was just going to say, and I also think it's the support of the BIA and the downtown and the Heritage District. So I agree. The farmers market's great, and if we can do some of these other things, a big part of our mandate is education, and some days are quieter, but I know they really appreciated us being there. So I think that in that way it was very successful. Got a lot of positive feelings from them for sure.
Yeah, Kaylee.
I think the town crier doing the walking tours was good. So if we could get him to maybe do that again, especially on the day.
Your voice is not working very well.
I think she was talking about the town crier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kaylee, I think, Sarah, I'll go to you, and then maybe Kaylee will be back up and running.
Yeah, I was just gonna say probably what Kaylee was trying to say is that when we found that we combined our table with the walking tours from the town crier, it got a lot of people interested in it. And when we were able to tell people about his tours, they seemed really excited. So that was a good combination that we were able to do. So maybe that's, since we know that it did work, maybe that's something that we focus on for next year. And then for me personally, I was just wondering if we look at maybe the biggest days or something that Open Air Dunlop has, like opening day and sort of one of their major ones, and then we can use our time effectively, and we can sort of spread it out between that and then the farmers market, maybe when Dunlop is a little bit, it's been open for a while, like, people are excited about it in the first couple of weeks, and then it kind of dwindles, and then it comes back. Maybe we can notice that ebb and flow and sort of switch up our spots.
Yeah, I think that's very observant. So David and Craig, your names are against this item. Can I leave it to you two to sort of figure this out and get figure out whether you go Open Air Dunlop or the farmers market? And I think certainly Steve Travis is a really great addition. That's for sure. All right. Anything else on the work plan? The communication strategy we're working on, we talked about that earlier. Okay, Shelley.
Yeah, I mean, just, as I said, I haven't had a lot of chance to look at it, but you go and you look at, okay, so number 6 is a feasibility study to evaluate establishment of conservation district. There's nobody's name other than all of us on there, and it was supposed to have been done in March. So is somebody working on that? Like I look at these things as kind of being a newbie and going, does this represent everything that we are working on, and then a wish list of what we'd like to do? I'm assuming that's what it is, but I just don't know if it's if it is representative of what we're doing. It should have all the budget items in there that we've obviously budgeted for. So whether or not we're getting tents and tables and all that stuff, then somebody should be, it should be on this work plan, so somebody knows that they're supposed to be doing it. But even going back to that, so that's number 1, everything should be on here. Number 2 is going back to my original comment of just that feasibility study. You look at March, and I don't know, there's 2 things under March. Is anybody working on that?
Oh, we can be sure. Thomas is working on it. It was it's an item that we actually recommended to council, and council approved it. And so now whether March is the deadline or not, or whether Thomas is going to deliver by March is another question. But I see him
is March. Start time.
Start time is March. Oh, okay. That's what I thought. All right.
Okay. Oh, I see. Yes. Sorry, my mistake. Yes.
That helps. Okay.
Thanks.
Sarah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, anything that says staff, I think that's something that Thomas is doing behind the scenes and then comes to us and talks to us about it.
Yep. Yep. Okay, Kathy?
I'm really glad to see the item number 10, which is explore the Heritage Home Tax Relief Program. Because I think if it's for designated properties only, we don't really have that many to be concerned about budget-wise, because some of the designated properties are like city assets. So we wouldn't be looking at tax relief for the city assets, more the designated homes. So I'm glad to see that on here.
Okay. All right. I just had one question, and that was on number 12, designating 2 buildings. And I know we're working on that. What's the status of that, Thomas?
So that would be for this year. So we're currently working on designating a building right now. That's basically from the 2021 work plan, and we don't have candidate buildings for 2022 just yet. So we could have that conversation. There has been a couple buildings discussed last year. One of them was Simcoe Hotel, I believe. So there's a couple of other ones. So when committee decides which buildings we want to pursue, then that's when we send a letter or a councillor member goes knocking. We'd have to determine what we think is the best approach to do that, or if we feel that we should just proceed the council route and just designate the building or recommend designating the building without owner consent. That is also within the city's legislative authority to do. I think the preference is to work with property owners. We had some success in that regard. So if we have willing property owners and the will to do it and the funds to do it, that's the triangle of success. So it's just a matter of a committee identifying to staff which buildings we want to designate, and then that we would pursue that.
Okay, and the 2 that we're working on from last year, what's the latest on that?
So we only are working on one at the moment. This is 125, 127 Dunlop Street. We have a report from our consultant, Sue Murdoch. And the next steps is basically for us to accept that award, or staff to accept that award. And then I'll accept the award. Tired.
That's all right.
To accept that report. And then I can bring that report forward and we would discuss it. And then we would pass a recommendation or a motion to recommend. There's been some legislative changes with designating buildings. So I'm just connect with our consultant and get that moving along. But it will be done, within this committee's tenure.
Okay. All right. Great. Kathy, did I see your hand?
I was just going to say the Queen's Hotel, Chris Gerard did, when I did speak to him initially about listing his property so that he knew that there was SIP funding available, even though it's not all that much in conjunction with the millions that he's going to be spending on the restoration of the Queen's. But he had mentioned that, yes, he would consider listing, and also when the renovation is completed or the restoration is completed, he has every intention of designating the building. So maybe we could put that on a list. Thomas, I think you have spoken to him, but do you need to send him a letter to list the property?
I have not spoken with him. I've tried to get into contact with them, but they've been closed anyways. It was tricky to get a hold of him, but I did speak with a representative from them today. We didn't speak about that. We just spoke about the Heritage Awards, but now I do have a contact, and I could probably just call them and have a chat over the phone. And then if they're amenable, we would formally invite them.
Just fill out the form. Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay. Greg.
I was going to say, if we're thinking about maybe designating some buildings, and we want to sort of have like a little mini list of these are So if let's say the Simcoe Hotel decides we don't want to do it, maybe if we had a couple other ones that we're thinking kind of in the order, like, and one area I was thinking of is the farmhouse, those 3 buildings on
Yes.
the corner of Esser Road and Tiffin. That might be a little block of buildings that we might consider of designating sort of in there too. I don't know. That was my idea.
Yeah, I think those are certainly worthy candidates for sure. All right. Anything else on the work plan? Sarah.
A question about that same item. It says hire a consultant to undertake review. Who pays for that? I know that we were talking about before that there was another department that had extra funds that could maybe help us in that area. But I don't know. I was just wondering, is there something in place now, or is there something could be in place in the future where if somebody wants to designate, but it is a bit of a cost to do it, you have to get the assessment done and all that sort of stuff. Is there something that we can do to help them offset that? We say for 2 a year, the first 2 that come to us that want to designate, we can help you out with your cost to it, or I just don't really remember how that conversation has gone previously, and I just sort of saw it there and brought it to my attention.
If I recall correctly, and Thomas can maybe back me up on that, is that we in fact are paying for the report that's being done for the Main Street building right now. That's correct, I think, Thomas.
That's correct, Chair. We have already paid the consultant for their work. I mean, if there is a number of buildings like beyond it, because right now the budget says about $6,000, which is what the budget the chair had circulated to the committee back in January said. We could probably do like 3 or 4 buildings in that budget. Maybe we'll get like a bulk discount or something like that. But if we had more, I know that there is, like the Development Services Department, Michelle had said that, if the committee has some strategic initiatives that we're working on, that we're having great success on, she would look at a proposal for helping fund an initiative. So if we're there, then we could certainly approach the Director of Development Services and see if she would support that initiative.
I do think that Craig is onto something as well, that we really should be thinking about designating a number of properties, and I think we should move forward with that. So maybe, let's think about that over this coming month, and maybe next month, Tammy, put it on the agenda. Can we, maybe each of us can come up with a number of buildings that might be suitable for a list like that, and then we can see where we go with it. All right. Okay. Anything else on the work plan?
Councillor, I've got 2 items to bring up.
Okay.
My hand must be hiding on your screen there.
It is. For some reason, I'm not seeing you.
Okay.
Well, you'll have to make a face or something.
Okay, we'll do next time. 2 things. The Heritage Wraps. I believe that's item number 16, Historic Wraps. Craig is the lead. I think I just put Craig there, tongue in cheek. I'm not sure Craig will be the lead or agreed to be the lead, but I did have a conversation today with Steve Rose. They are looking at doing more Heritage Wraps and are looking to partner with committees in different departments. So I just thought that was sort of we could partner up with them. They have done a bunch of background work on how much these things cost. It's about $2,000 a box for them to get it done. He didn't tell me, we were sort of ships passing in the night this morning. He didn't tell me if that includes an entirely new box or if it's just a wrap. I suspect it has to do, it's a new box entirely, and they're installing a new one. Just because the cost seems really high. I don't think the vinyl wraps themselves are that expensive. So, one of the challenges we had with these wraps is that the boxes are old. The paint is peeling, they've been graffiti, there's grease, dirt on them. And to get the wrapping to stay, it's quite difficult, and it's best to do on a new box. So that's why I think that the price point is $2,000. So we don't have a budget allocation or anything like that for that project. And I think there was a little bit of wiggle room in the budget you had sent around, Chair. So, you know, if we could do 1 or 2 boxes and pick where we'd like to see those. I think there was a preferred location around Burton and Essa, and there was another one somewhere else, I can't remember. So if the committee could deliberate on preferred locations, and perhaps we don't have to do it right now, but we do have to, by April, commit if we're going to have them done and commit funds, and we have to pick the art. So we do have a hard deadline of April 2022.
All right. Craig.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. If we sort of discussed before, if we can even get 1 or 2 going, maybe we get some synergy going. And, you know, it would be nice if we could have them in different parts of the city, and so, you know, 1 in Allendale, 1 in Holly, you know, I mean, that'd be great for Holly, 1 and so I think Councillor Harris was saying, you know, maybe some of the other councillors, you know, would want to pick, hey, I think we should, one would be go here, and then Deb was mentioning, you know, we can get pictures from different parts of the city, and then so we're spreading heritage out to new areas of the city, and even some of the new areas eventually, and I think that'd be really great. So
I guess I have a question. Does Steve have a list of new boxes that he's putting in this year? And if he does, maybe we should piggyback on that and pick 2 or 3 from that, and then we can just pay for the wrap, and he can pay for the box.
I do think that they have a preferred location, just because there's probably some boxes out there that are dated or damaged, and they're looking to replace them. So, like I said this morning, we were sort of ships passing in the night, and then I was messaging him, and then he would message me, and we were just couldn't connect. But I can check with him if they have a preferred list, and then and confirm that the committee is interested in partnering up with him, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I think
Who is that?
His name is Steve Rose.
Yeah.
And what does he do?
Roads and traffic.
Yes, I don't know his exact title. 1 second, I can tell you.
He works for the city?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is the manager of traffic and parking service operations.
Okay.
He's the boss of boxes.
Boss of boxes. Like it. You're speaking to the right person.
So yeah, I mean, and I think if you communicate to him that, you know, we're interested in working with him to do some wraps on his boxes, that would be, I think, a marriage made in heaven.
Okay.
All right, so let's put that on the agenda for next week or next month, and let's see where,
I was gonna ask.
where that goes. Next week. Did I shock you, Tammy? All right. Any more on that, Kathy?
Oh, not on that.
Okay.
I was gonna ask about item number 19.
Okay.
So is that digitize the cultural heritage resource inventory? So is that the white binder? Am I recalling that correctly? Is that the big fat white binder that we have with the other cultural resources? There's some 500 or something like that. Is that what that is?
I think that. Oh, or sorry. Yeah, Chair.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Jumping in there.
I'm busy reading.
Yes. I don't know if it's a white binder, but basically it's a thick binder, and there's 500 or so pages in there, and each page has a description of something, whether it's a building or structure or some sort of plaque or whatever. Like, I haven't been able to take a deep dive into that. We were hoping for the last 2 years to have a summer student that would do that for us. We haven't had one, and I don't think we have one this summer. So I don't know if that's going to be something that's, you know, that we can move on this year as well. That's why it's in the red category. It's just coming up to a limit of what we can actually accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's the key to it. Kathy.
And that was then my next question was, do we get to hire a summer student? Because maybe we can get that done, because that would be really great to have that digitized. so that we can also, as we're out talking to people, we not only have the walking tour guides, but, you know, there's other, you know, 500, potentially 500 other resources out there that we don't know anything about.
Mm-hmm. Thomas, when you mean digitizing, is it taking you know, a page at a time out of those 500 pages and scanning them?
No, not necessarily. It would actually be digitizing in a GIS or yeah. So when staff are reviewing development applications, you know, there would be a flag there to say that there's something here, and it may not be impacted by the development. If it's a plaque or something like that, then, you know, we wouldn't need to be worrying about that. But if there's something else there, then we could work with the developer to recognize that cultural heritage resource and whatnot. So we already have a quite substantial layer. Like, you know, it's not a public layer, but it shows locations of plaques and posts and bells and like a lot of other things that are not in like a document as of the public. So so we probably need to cross-reference those two information sources.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the work plan? Super. All right, we will carry on. Oh, there's Kathy waving madly at me. Sorry.
It's just a quick question. So when do we, because there's an election this year, when will we still be meeting in like September and October and November? Like when does that, is there a break for us at some point, or what happens? Do we?
I think that's a Tammy or Thomas question.
It's quite possible. It's hard to say. Your term ends November 14th. It might be touch and go for October, for sure, but we don't know that for sure yet. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I've had no direction on that yet, so.
All right. Anything else on the work plan? All right, let's then move on to the grant application, culture sport grant application, and it is on the work plan actually. But Thomas, I think Shelley, you're the scribe on this one too, right?
Oh, yes. So Thomas kind of reached out. Then I reached out to, we met Brianne Dubray, who was or is part of Simcoe. What's her title is Tourism County Simcoe. She was sat in on our stakeholder meeting. And so that's when we met her. And so she is actually in charge of this application. And so I haven't had a chance to really talk to Thomas about this, but she did send a note back to me on February the 3rd, saying that the fund is in place to support and enhance projects that will benefit tourism, culture, and sport in Simcoe County. She does go on to say it's available to not-for-profits and municipalities within the county of Simcoe. Since you are based in the separate city of Barrie, in order to be eligible, you will need to demonstrate that your project would stimulate the economy or have economic benefit outside of city limits. So I kind of read that and kind of went, yeah. So I haven't talked to Thomas since that, but I kind of read that, and, you know, I defer to the experience of these on the committee to say, is it even worth speaking further with Brianne or filling in an application? Because I would have read that and went, not for us.
I'm inclined to agree with you actually, and our experience last year confirms that. But Thomas, any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Councillor. I was just going to basically echo what Shelley's saying, in that, you know, we'd have to find which one of our work plan items ticks that box and really push that one item. Because I think for a couple of years ago, we did their tour guides or the books, funding for the books. And then last year we did the heritage, the neighborhood street signs. So when you're entering in Allendale or entering into Blair Park, you would see, and I try to make a case how that's going to have a regional impact, as people are staying in B&Bs and whatnot. And unfortunately, we're not successful. One of the things I know where application was weak was regional economic and tourism benefit. So how is what we're doing going to help tourism in Penetanguishene, in Collingwood, and in Bradford? There has to be direct, tangible benefit. So I don't see a strong contender for that in one of our items. Potentially the Waterfront Allendale Go station, just because there's art there, and people are using connecting to Barrie through that Allendale Go. But again, how is it having a tangible benefit to tourism and regional economic growth to Township of Wimmera or Township of Springwater? It's a little loose.
It's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
So therefore, if that's, if there's, there can be obviously further comments from the committee, but, I wasn't going to fill in the numerous pages of application that Thomas has done in the past couple of years, and God bless him for doing that. But happy to take the comments from the committee.
I think, anybody want to comment on that? I think you can scratch that off your job jar, frankly. Kathy.
And this might be for another time, but like could we do signage in any of those locations that directed, so if people are visiting, Penetang or Collingwood or Wasaga, wherever, could we do some sort of signage board directing them to downtown Barrie in their travels? Check out our historic downtown Barrie shops and restaurants. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. And
well, I think at some point when you drive through the States, you sometimes see a highway sign that says historic downtown X. And I would at some point be interested in having a sign on the 400, one of those big green signs that says exit here for the historic downtown. I think that would be useful. But I think that's also something that somebody has to deal with at the Ministry of Transportation. So, but I do think that it's very worthwhile, actually. All right, the BDAR presentation. Kathy, that is your baby.
yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay.
I did a first draft and I shared it with Deb and Shelley, and I need to make changes to it. What I have done is I want to focus mainly on the register and listing and designating and making sure that the real estate agents and their members understand about the difference between listed and designated, so that they can talk to Century homeowners about the importance of listing, and that there's funding available through the municipal SIP program. There is not funding available through the Ontario government anymore. So I did get an email back from somebody at the province. I had reached out to say, I've looked through all the paperwork and it's hard to tell because some of the documentation you're reading is older. And the answer came back that there was no provincial funding available for designated properties anymore. So that's gone. There was a comment about federal funding.
Excuse me, do you have a date or tentative date for the presentation to be done?
Yes, on February 24th.
Oh, okay. So now you have a deadline in terms of getting your presentation done.
Yes, at 10 a.m. And they sent an email, I think it was today, Thomas, just wanting to know how long our presentation was going to be, whether we would take questions, and I forget what the third item was on that. But yeah, so I just really want to focus on that, and also the SIP program so that they understand that. And what our mandate is. And I don't think that the presentation would be any longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be long.
And the questions maybe half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. Thank you for doing that, Kathy. And Shelley is pointing at somebody. I don't see any hands up. Must be you, Thomas. You were going to make a face. I didn't see that.
Thank you, Shelley. I was going to say something, but I put my hand down because I just wanted to confirm the date and time for the presentation.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thank you. Sarah.
I was just wondering, and to use the phrase building on that, if you find that they have specific questions, I know that we were looking to put on our webpage like a frequently asked. So if that's something that we can add to our webpage, that would be good. And then I was just wondering if there is a way that we can make like a one-page tiny little pamphlet for when we do go out to these places that gives information about the funding, about designating, about listing, all that sort of stuff. I know that it's going to be in the booklet, but if we had just like a single, here's an information card for you that if people don't want to take the booklet, they can maybe take that bit of information with them. Just wondered, and when you do presentations like this, that might be something tangible that people could take home with them as well, and hopefully wouldn't be too expensive to make up.
Sure. Yeah, just a one pager is often be very good. Shelley.
Part of the communications toolkit that we're working on.
Good. Keep working. Kathy.
And the one thing I wasn't sure, maybe Thomas could answer this, is for the SIP, which is you do it through Apply online. Is there actually a hard copy version of the Apply application?
I don't think so. Let me just check on our website. Actually see how the application is to be submitted for this SIP, because I don't think it's supposed to be Apply.
It is. It is. If you go to development services, if you're looking, you go to development services, it'll bring up like the little tiles and it's got SIP there. And you click on SIP and then it takes you to the next page, which is where you do the online application. But I was just wondering if there was an actual hard copy of that that could be included in the presentation.
No, you're putting me on the spot, Kathy. I don't.
That's okay. I've had planned on talking to you anyway in the next day or two.
All right.
It's not a tile.
Because it's not easy to find is what I'm getting at. So it's not like we can direct them on our page to a form. It's actually, you have to go online to do it, which is sort of separate.
Okay, so there is, city's online application tool. It's under Community Improvement Plan Financial Incentives. There's just progress reports, the Municipal Heritage Register, the actual CIP, and I don't see a PDF on there. So yeah, you're right. There's no form to print off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe.
Okay. So then that is gonna sort of maybe help me with my presentation, because I wanted to actually show a couple of screenshots of what that looks like, just so they know.
Well, you could, Kathy, you could like create an account and sign into Apply and follow the process and do like a dummy application. Just don't hit submit.
Yeah. I just, because even for me to find it, like I had to, when you go to Apply, I have an account. And you go in and you go, home, you go across the top of the different departments. And then it took me a little bit to find it. To go, do you know enough to go to development services for that? That's anyway.
Okay. All right. The next item is the status of Municipal Heritage Registrar. Thomas, anything on that?
Yep, there's actually no new submissions, nothing that I know has come in the mail. As Kathy mentioned earlier on in the meeting, I did go out and take pictures of properties. There's probably just one or two that I'm missing. So I'm trying to get it done by the end of February. I try to do them at this time of year every year. So they all have, most of them have snow, but if I can't get a good picture now, it just says, you know, a picture forthcoming, but that's the only update I have at this time, just to get it done by the end of February.
Okay. And then the final item is development applications. Anything that needs, Kathy.
I just, I think I saw in the, is it the city building committee, that 72 Burton Avenue is up for listing.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, we
that,
approved that.
was that tonight?
We approved that on Monday night.
Monday night. So 72 Burton, what is going to be listed?
Yes.
That's good. Awesome. Thanks.
No, that was on the recommendation of this committee, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Any development applications?
I do. The only one that has come forward, and these are sort of rare in that it's actually regarding a committee of adjustment application that the committee may have seen for 118 Peel Street. They're actually proposing 3 towns, but it's really a semi, a town in the middle, and a semi on the end. So it's 3 homes being proposed. They're seeking a number of minor variances on that to make it happen. These lands are subject to site plan control, so the application is going to have to proceed through that first. So they're looking to get their minor variances first, and then go to through the site plan process. And I just want to show them to the committee quickly. This built form has actually already been approved on other sections of Peel Street. Let me just quickly get where's share screen. Screen 2, share. Okay, so if I could just get a thumbs up from somebody that can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, so this is what it's going to look like. You've got 3 homes, or sorry, 3 units up top, and then below grade, you actually have 3 second suites as well. So that is the elevation from the front. So as you're looking from Peel Street, and this is sort of the side view, but it's going to be, nobody's going to see that from the street because the street has homes on both sides. So there's a property here, and then as we go on this side, there's another property there. So they're going to be, I'm not sure exactly where the property line is, but that's probably somewhere here where the fence line is. So you'll have the 3 homes on this lot here. And so we'll be reviewing that through the site plan process. I did provide pre-consultation comments on this file as well. And I'll be submitting comments on the minor variance application as well. So
they're not taking any houses down. They're just building this building in between the 2 houses.
No, I think this building is going to come down.
Oh, that one is coming down. Okay.
Yes. So there'll be 3 driveways here. I don't know exactly if this driveway is going to be kept here. I did have the notice up. Actually, I do have the site plan right here.
Yeah. Where's the parking? In the front yard?
Yes.
Yep.
So we're losing the tree.
Yeah, so there's 1 tree in the boulevard that's likely to go. They will be submitting a tree preservation plan for the rest of the lot. So any trees that are back here, and I don't know exactly from the street view, but there will be a tree preservation plan.
Right, but the one that's in the middle of the front yard?
Yes.
That's gone.
So I think that is a boulevard tree, so they'll have to seek permission from the city to remove that.
And then what happens, or where is the green space on this one, Thomas?
So they do have quite a large backyard.
Okay.
So I think that's their.
But is there any green? Yeah, is there any green space in the front yard? Or is it just all park?
No, so you have your parking area here.
Right, okay.
Your driveway, and then you have, looks like grass, or I'm not sure exactly what it is. Here they're providing an accessible parking spot, and then you have more grass on this side. So they're probably asking for some reductions in terms of landscape covered area. I didn't read the notice fully, so I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn, but I suspect that's one of the reductions they're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you, do you have, Thomas, the capability of sort of assessing the scale of the new building?
We don't have sorry, go ahead.
No, I was thinking in terms of height and mass, because it looks like, I mean, it's a very attractive looking building. The question I'm having is, how does it match with the houses on either side and across the street?
I don't have renderings to show the building sort of in relation to the other buildings, but we do have height measurements here. So we have 31 feet to the highest peak. I'm not good with my conversions, what 31 feet is. I think it's just over 10 meters.
10 meters, a little over,
yeah,
right around 10 meters.
So looking at this building next door, I mean, it'll likely be in line with this because this is a fairly tall two-story building.
Okay.
This one has it's probably not as tall, but you know, I suspect there's not going to be a whole lot of rhythm broken. It's not like you got a bungalow 10 meters tall building and then a bungalow. So I suspect the street rhythm will be at least in terms of height will be appropriate. I think the only difference that you'll notice is that they're going to likely bring the buildings a little forward on the street as well because they're fairly long, but I don't think it's going to stick much further out than where is this?
Actually, when I was looking at, it looks like the building's actually further
Actually,
back.
it's recessed. Yeah, it's recessed back from the
Well, that's a
street.
good thing.
Yeah. So the entryways, so there is an entryway to go up, and there's an entryway to go down. So they've actually pushed the building back to facilitate that.
Okay.
So, and did you say that the there's going to be like a second suite in the lower level, and then is the upstairs like are they 3 units?
So you'll have
6 units.
one.
Yeah, sorry.
So there's going to be 6. I think that's what their proposal is. I mean, they may change their minds.
Okay.
But from what I understand, that this is going to be 1 unit, then you have a basement unit. This is 1 unit, and you have a basement unit, and then another unit here and another unit here. So they'll be creating each lot, and as per provincial legislative changes, each lot is permitted to have a second suite in it. So that's what they're doing. These are purpose built, and there's this building. I think there's 6 more on the further north on Peel as well. Yeah.
And is this one, does it have a yard that would be big enough to put an accessory dwelling unit in down the road if they wanted to?
I don't think so, just because sorry folks, my computer's a bit slow. There we go.
Too bad they couldn't just move that little house instead of demolishing it. That could become the accessory dwelling unit and put it in the backyard.
I don't think like the new standards for accessory dwelling units, I don't think they'd be able to meet those standards.
Oh, okay.
Because these are going to be individual lots, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a common elements condominium. So imagine this line extending all the way back. That's going to be the backyard for this unit, and I don't think there's going to be enough space. You know, you need a 7-meter setback from the rear yard alone.
Yes, but then they go to committee of adjustment and ask for that to be adjusted to 3.
Perhaps I can comment
No,
on that.
they do.
But if there's 6 units in there, don't they need 6 parking spaces as well? And it doesn't look like 6 parking spaces there.
So I think what they're doing is they're getting tandem parking. And I don't know if they're counting the driveway, or sorry, the garage's parking space as well.
Oh, those are garages, are they?
Yes, so they're driving garages. So you've got your driveway, this is a parking space as well. So that 36 feet, 35.6 feet of parking area, that's over 10 meters. And I think we need 5 and something meters for 1 parking space. So I think they've met that. Again, I apologize, I haven't read the notice in full.
So I also have a question about the accessible parking spot. Are those units accessible? Because do you have to go upstairs to get in the front door? Like, how do you're providing an accessible parking spot, but it's not accessible because you actually have to go upstairs. Is that right?
You're a good point, Kathy. I don't exactly know how they're going to navigate that. Maybe there's going to be a ramp here, or a ramp can be installed.
Right.
I don't necessarily know if that, I think they're required to provide that space because of the number of units, but I don't think, that there's going to be actually somebody who's going to build there, who's going to live there, is going to, need accessibility assistance. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, and back to the parking, I mean, if you're gonna have somebody living below you and you're there in the garage, like if the person in the basement is, technically not gonna have a parking spot, because I mean, what, they're gonna have to get out and move their car so that the guy that's in the garage is gonna be able to get out? Like, that's just not gonna, I mean, it just doesn't sound like it's well thought out with regards to 6 dwellings and there's not 6 parking spots.
I would just caution the committee that, this being a minor variance application, our scope of what we're looking at is very limited in terms of what I can apply in terms of planning policy. And it's mainly limited to character and sort of compatibility. Things like parking, accessibility, all these other things, that's job of the other planner, the file manager, to make sure that they're doing everything accordingly. But I'm here to make sure to get your comments on basically urban design compatibility.
Okay. And do you comment on trees too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure, because that's a big part of the streetscape.
That's a major component. Yeah.
Sarah.
I was just wondering, on terms of heritage, were they being asked to keep their materials and look sort of in keeping with the streetscape? It looked sort of from the drawing that it was going to be pretty accurate.
Yes, so that's one of the things I provided in my comments, would be to make sure that the urban design of what is being proposed is in keeping with the historic neighborhood. And again, so I've seen this design in color format in other areas. I haven't seen this particular building, but I know that they've done that in other situations. So I expect that they'll do that here as well. So it wouldn't be like purple and like green and a mix of colors. It would likely be that heritagey palette.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on this one? Okay. Thank you very much. And that brings us to adjournment. And it's 7 minutes to 9, according to me. So we did a lot of work. Thank you very much for your efforts, and we will see you in exactly 4 weeks, March the 9th.
Oh, no, Feb 14.
Yes, of course, Feb 14. It'll be a love in for sure. Yeah. All right. Have a good night, and thank you very much.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.